Good evening, everyone. I'm Wanda Littlejohn, Vice President of Discipline in the Literacy 6 through 12. We are sponsored by the South Carolina Middle Grades Initiative, and welcome to our webinar this evening featuring Ms. Pamela Brown. She will be presenting on culturally sustaining disciplinary literacy in art classroom practices. Pamela is in her seventh year as a teacher serving Chester Middle School in Chester, South Carolina. She graduated from Winthrop University in 2019 with a bachelor's degree in art education. She works with students of all artistic abilities. She enjoys encouraging students to experiment and explore all that is available to them through the visual arts. She believes visual learning is a key component of comprehension, and it is a powerful tool that can be utilized to benefit all students as they work to strengthen their communication skills. I now would like to introduce to you Ms. Pamela Brown, our speaker for tonight.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I'm feel a little uncomfortable because I have watched some of your webinars and been very impressed by the speakers you've had on and the information that they've presented. I've really learned a lot from those that I've had the chance to view. So I love at the end, they are always given some time to the speaker to answer questions. And I think I would rather, at the end of my presentation, I would rather have some feedback from you and see what more and where we can take some of the ideas that I have prepared to present to you tonight. Just to jump in, just a little, expound a little bit on that introduction of myself. I think it's an easy thing to say that I teach art at Chester Middle School. But if you start to unpack that a little bit, you can start to see some levels of difficulty. The first one I'd like to point out is with middle school students. They've reached a point in their development where they are just tired of adults telling them what to do, and they are ready to be grown up and move on. But we know developmentally that they still require a lot of direction. And I think those of you who might be familiar with Chester, it's a very diverse demographic there, and very high poverty. The community sustains a lot of violence. Sometimes our students can be victims. Sometimes they're caught up. Sometimes they're the perpetrators. It's really been heartbreaking to see some of those instances play out. So it's it's a job that just requires a lot of heart. And I like to approach each and every day with how can I serve? How can I serve these students? Now, I'm not often given that same level of respect coming back at me. So it is a challenging situation. But today I did want to talk about some of the practices that I've developed during my time teaching in Chester. Like I say, all 7 years that I've been teaching have been in the same school. I just have to just share a little, just for the very first time that I walked into that art classroom with my then principal, and she showed me the room, and it was it's an art room. There's a lot of stuff in an art room, and it was a little messy and a little overwhelming, and I just felt that in my heart. I thought, "Oh, this is the place for me," and it really felt like home. And I've really enjoyed my time there, making that room feel like home for my students as well. at any given moment, we've got a lot going on. So, and teaching different levels, like I say, teaching different levels of artists. So, with that, I just wanted to go over some of the things that we're going to talk about today. The first one would be practice that I learned while I was in college, while I was at Winthrop. It's called, in fact, let me just go ahead and move us along here with our slides. So we're going to talk about visual thinking strategies. And this is an area that has been proven with research to be effective in helping students visually think. So I really appreciated it, the times that or the experience that I've had having learned that in college and putting it into practice into my classroom. So I'll share that with you, especially if you're not familiar with it. It's very powerful. Then I wanted to talk a little bit about how my students and how we use sketchbooks in the art room. I've used various iterations of sketchbooks throughout the years, and I've finally kind of hit on a little sweet spot, and I'll tell you why I think it's been particularly effective. And then finally, we're just going to end up with just a worksheet that I use and how I've used it. So this is a worksheet that will be presented to the students several different times during the semester. So the worksheet stays the same, but the art that I present to them and that I'm asking them to reflect on is going to be different every time. And a lot of times I will let them choose. I'll put up two on the Promethean board. I'll put up two beautiful images, or I think that are beautiful. But I'm an artist, so art of all different types appeals to me. So, and I always tell them that. But they don't have to like it. But I just want them to compare and to be able to, in this case, write what they're seeing and write maybe some of the emotions that the artist is trying to convey. Okay, so let's just jump right in. I wanted to present you with some artwork and let you see what the visual thinking strategies, what that's like in our group, our group that we have here tonight. Okay, so this very first image, with visual thinking strategies, we want to present them to the image to the students. A lot of times a teacher could even set a timer and say, I would just like the silence in the room and just look at the image and think about it, for maybe 1, maybe to 3 minutes, depending on the group that you've got, the size of the group, and the dynamics you've got going. So sometimes you have to take, well, I'm going to say always we have to take that into consideration, always the audience of students that we've got. But I would like to ask all of you here in our webinar tonight, what is going on in this picture? What do you see? No wrong answers.
I see a horse rearing on its hind legs.
Yes. So fantastic. And I'm just looking at it again with fresh eyes. It looks like the horse's bridle even says something, doesn't it? Oh, no, just a design. Just a design.
Is it a carousel horse, or I'm looking at the pole and it almost looks like the pole is part of the horse, so it makes me think of a carousel.
So you're looking at the character, the gentleman, he's holding on to a staff of some kind. And it does look like it's connected to that horse, doesn't it? Good eyes.
And I see the vines. It looks like the vines are trapping the horse and man.
Yes. Fantastic. Good observations. Anyone have any observations about the main character?
He doesn't seem surprised at what's going on or fearful that the horse is bucking.
If we look
He looks very strong and in control.
strong. Excellent.
I can't
Do you
figure
look
out why it's in front of all those pretty flowers.
right? Okay, I'm just going to advance the slide here. So our first question in visual thinking strategies is always what's going on in the picture. And we just want to invite the students in the room, anyone who's viewing this, the students in our webinar tonight, what they see, what visually is being presented to them. So once again, no wrong answers. And we're just looking at it. And we're just going to go to our next V.T.S. question, visual thinking strategies question is this. What do you see that makes you see that? And we had some really good examples with the pole, with the expression on his face. We've got these vines, and I like that idea somebody brought up, the trappings between the vines and the horse, right? Do we see any, this again, at any point, anyone can also add another observation or anything that they want to comment on or are wondering about. This is an excellent tool for curiosity, for wonder.
So he's got the muscular arms, which tells me he's, it's like an athletic kind of person. But I also just noticed that there's like bells or tassels on the bridle. So it's more of a decorative horse event than a competitive horse event, maybe. I mean,
Okay,
he's dotted up for something, the horse.
nice. So I think that your mentioning of the carousel horse, the decorative
Seems fitting.
items, yeah, seems more fitting than, you're right, than maybe an equestrian event.
I like the
So
way his tail is so shiny and brushed and wavy. Like maybe they've
beautiful
even,
horse.
and his mane, like maybe they've crimped it, they've put it in curlers.
Yes,
Definitely a show
yes.
horse.
A show horse, yes. And I think what about the dress of the main character, of the gentleman?
Um, yeah, I don't understand. I'm looking at his shoes and they look like moccasins or something. So maybe
He's got
like,
some sandals on.
okay.
Good
Would you
observation.
think maybe Middle Eastern kind of
Um,
dress?
I don't know. I'm looking at his watch. And of course,
Oh,
I know a few answers, right? And the tank top,
mm-hmm,
and maybe intended to be a more modern. Um,
mm-hmm.
so there's a little bit of disconnect maybe between the type of horse he's riding and the kind of person,
Right.
the kind of person that he is. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay, let's go on. All will be revealed. Okay, so let's go ahead to this final V.T.S. question. And so, visual thinking strategies is designed so that all teachers, but especially art teachers, could benefit from using this and presenting this on artwork to children or to students, and having a uniform way of talking about it. Okay, so the last question is, what else can we find? We've been looking at this for a while now. Is there any other details that we might want to point out to one another? We are all going to look at art through our own experiences, our own culture, our own just our own identities. So all of us are going to see different things. So what might be obvious to you somebody else might not have even seen it because they're caught up with something else that they're seeing. So just like to throw that last V.T.S. question out to the group. What else can we find?
There's no saddle.
Oh, good eyes. Look at that.
He's just riding on a blanket.
He's got the blanket, but not a saddle like we are accustomed to seeing.
But
Yeah.
he's got the stirrups.
Yeah. And they look fancy. They don't look utilitarian like we would
Right.
expect from a writer of his, you know, in a modern writer. Am I right? All right, so let's keep going here. All right, so this is the artist. His name is Kehinde Wiley, and I love this quote by him. He says this: "Artists provide questions, not answers." Now, I think if we went back to the image, right, we came up with a few questions. Am I right? Okay, so I just wanted to kind of wrap up for the sake of this conversation. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Let's stay on the image of the image that we're looking at. Kehinde Wiley, if you're not familiar with his work, his most famous work of art is a number of years ago. I'm sorry, I'm horrible with numbers. A few years ago now, when President Obama and his wife Michelle had their portraits painted. Kehinde Wiley was asked to paint Barack Obama's portrait. So that is his most famous work of art. He is a contemporary artist. And so that means that he is alive and painting, and he's making contemporary art. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about his mindset and of why he paints what he does, especially in this series where he's painted a number of young gentlemen and women too that appear to be from the street, if you will. In fact, a lot of his models are. He will. He's had a studio in New York, and he would often go out on the street and find models for his artwork, invite them into his studio, and paint them in just what they were wearing, what they're wearing. But the reason we've got this image of this horse is what Kehinde Wiley did is he took a look around at historical artwork and found that a lot like music, and forgive me if this comes off as a little unsophisticated, but music and fine art are just basically full of the work of dead white men. And so as an artist of color, he was not seeing himself represented in the historical artwork, in artwork that might be hanging in museums. And he thought to address this. So this is what he's done. This horse is an image that is taken from a historical painting. And I forgive me, I didn't quite do the research on this particular painting. But a lot of paintings would show a soldier or a general, a captain of war on a horse such as this, and the background would have been a battlefield. And the artist would have been portraying these strong, powerful men at it's almost a fictional moment, because of course in a real battle you couldn't have an artist with his easel all set up painting a beautiful heroic picture of the general. So this is Kehinde Wiley's take on this. Now the backgrounds, and this is just my conjecture, look very wallpaper-like. And instead of leaving the wallpaper flat to be the background, he has superimposed parts of the wallpaper on top of this to kind of maybe grab our attention, maybe bring the elements together. where they all tend to be a little they all tend to be a little distinct and separate from each other. And that is my take on his artists provide questions, not answers. So you got an art teacher today providing you with a few answers. But those are, again, my opinion. And, from what I know from reading articles on Mr. Wiley and his work. But I love V.T.S. because of the art that I present. I can make sure that to my students, I can make sure that I am representing all kinds of different cultures. And I loved Candy Wiley's his urban models, and the subjects of his artwork are real people. And a lot of times my students can relate to them, and even their clothing. Another one of his images is he's wearing a character on the horse is wearing some I'm going to get it wrong, Timberland, those boots, suede boots that are so popular, or were so popular a little while ago. And you can even see the logo. He's added such beautiful details. Okay, let's see. So this is right now. V.T.S., like I say, the research is backing it up. So this is just right from the V.T.S. website. And so this is our task one. I just left that there to remind us. So we're just kind of wrapping up this way of being culturally responsible and responsive. I can, as an artist or any teacher, art is a great way to start any discussion and get the kids really thinking for themselves. So all these beautiful talking points right here. It's been successfully implemented in all kinds of settings. Curators might use this when they're in the museum. One of my favorite TED Talks is, and I'm sorry, her name escapes me too, but we could maybe link it in the show notes, right? Where she has used fine art to train first responders, to use the fine art to show the details and to train memory. So I'm just going to go through these little bullet points we've got here. So development of critical thinking skills. We know how important that is for all of our students to develop critical thinking skills, to think for themselves. I find this particularly fascinating in the middle school realm because they almost are afraid to be the first ones to start the discussion because they're waiting for their peers. They are waiting for somebody else to take that first social risk and be the one to say something first. And a lot of times we might have to joke and laugh. And sometimes I've even had to say, okay, I'll just take 3 participants and then we'll move on, and just let the silence permeate the room until somebody is uncomfortable enough to go ahead and get our discussion rolling. But it does. The kids really want to share their thoughts. And once we get that going, it's really a beautiful thing to see. So it gives them a chance to improve their communication skills. A lot of times my students, I also ask them a question of the day as they're coming in the door, every one of them, just to make eye contact with them, maybe look deep into their soul and see if they're ready for a classroom. Sometimes my students, some of them are living out in a very real trauma. And it gives them a minute to look me in the eye without everyone else is lined up behind them, and we can have a moment to ourselves. So a lot of times when I'm asking these questions, I might try to keep the questions open-ended where they can answer with their opinion. And a lot of times they're like, oh, what's the word? And they might be familiar with what I'm presenting to them, but they struggle to even form the sentence. So I'm there for them. I can help them do that. And they're like going, yeah, yeah, yeah. And a lot of really great moments between myself and my students have come from that moment at the door when we're just getting in the door, as well as these visual thinking strategies practiced and happening in our room. And I don't want to wear them out with this. So it's kind of a fun day, a different day when we get to have one of these discussions. I want to kind of keep it special. But I have seen some real improvement in their communication skills by using V.T.S. Also to this inclusion learning environment. And sometimes I have to point this out to my students, that we are in the classroom together. We're this classroom family, and we don't want anyone to feel less than or excluded for any reason. And of course, being an artist, being in the artist community, I think that's a strength of an artist community. We need each other, and we just need to, especially just to be on the earth at this particular moment. We need to be sensitive, compassionate with each other. We need to be kind to each other. We need to teach kindness, and we really need to explicitly and intentionally, with words and deeds, so to speak, invite everyone into the room, invite everyone into the conversation. And V.T.S. is made to be exactly that, that anyone in the room can make a comment. Anything that you see going on in the painting is a valid thing to see. As the teacher, as the V.T.S. facilitator, and if you go to the website, they'll give you some guidelines about how to be a facilitator. And the biggest one is just to validate whatever anyone points something out to you. Yeah, I see that too, and thank them for their comments, because, like I say, we all are seeing the art through the lens of our own experiences, our own perspective. So we're all going to see something different. So this last bullet point here, to engage with visual literacy. I'm just going to read that just right off the slide. So V.T.S. helps learners become more visually literate, enabling them to interpret and understand visual information in various contexts. So as an art teacher, we have standards, and the standards are quite visual. They are words that we're asking the students to know and understand, and the words are heavy in our standards. So they are principles of design, and the other one, oh, I'm sorry, all art teachers, it's gonna be blasting out in your head, but anyway, the other one, principles of design, and it's gone. Anyway, I have great big charts and signs up in my room. So they include line and shape and form, all the things, texture, all the things that make up art, and are words that can describe art. So I will often have the students, can you look on our wall of words over here, and can you choose one of those? Can you use one, or maybe even two, or maybe three of them in a sentence as you're looking at the artwork and describing it to the group? So that's always a fun way to get those words that are often on our bulletin boards or in the room in some other capacity. I also have above my whiteboard, I have a big glossary of words. And this is a challenge I find with teaching art. A lot of the words are familiar words, but because we're using them in an art room and in an art creative context, they have different meanings. So it's fun to have the definitions, and I do have visual, I have pictures of all of the things that are in my glossary up on the board, so that we are seeing pictures, we're seeing examples right next to the word, and we're asking the kids now, okay, now can you use those words in this way to describe the art? So really a powerful, powerful strategy. Okay, I think we're ready to go on next to sketchbooks, unless I'll just pause right here. Anyone, any comments or observations at this point? Okay, here we go. You ready? All right, so our second task of our webinar tonight is discuss sketchbooks. So, in a classroom, this has just become a very necessary, a very powerful thing. A lot of times I have students come in the door and they don't want to be there. Number one thing I hear all the time, every day, here I am at the end of the semester, and I'm still hearing students, I can't draw, I can't do this. And at various times I'm like going, well, you can draw. And that's why you're here. We're here to practice, and I'm here to teach and prove it to you. So we want to make it as maybe risk-free as possible as we can for them. I do in my middle school classroom. So what I've got here is, and you see in this first picture, I've got just a simple, and here I've got the real one. I took a picture of it. 2 pieces of cardboard, and it's that little thin stuff. And I was able to buy this from a company that had already came cut for me, just in that size. And then I'm able to I bought off of Amazon a 2-hole punch, and I can quickly punch those holes. I've got rings in them. These are colored, and at this point in time, they are color coordinated, an art teacher, to the tables where the students sit. And I've done this so that if somebody, you know, and the helpers in the room, I have assigned different helpers on different days, of course. And even if they don't know everybody's name, or like in this case of this name, if you couldn't even read that name, and I love he's practiced out his cursive, and he's got a little cursive going there. I love that little crown he's put over his D. But if you didn't know somebody's name, you could still get the right sketchbook to the right table. And I only have 2 students at a table. So even if you just didn't know the student's name, you could put their 2 sketchbooks on their table, and nobody has to be embarrassed. And of course, we want everyone to learn everyone's names. We want that family situation going. So in my classroom, I just will put a simple prompt on the Promethean board. Today for our bell ringer, we're going to draw a cat. This is how I start everyone out. To draw big is really intimidating. So even for my middle school students, I've just had them divide that page up and just get them drawing something small when they come into the room, just to kind of get, I can draw a cat, and I'll tell them, I make it a stick figure cat. That's okay with me. I just need them to get past that little block of I can't draw, because we all know how powerful our minds are and how it's looking for validation always. If you keep telling your brain you can't draw, guess what? Pretty soon you're going to have that kind of evidence showing up. So anyway, I just wanted to share that particular sketchbook has become very economical for me. And I can just fill it with regular copy paper, again with the 2-hole punch. I can just fill it up as much or as little as the students need. and I always am in class offering more paper. Who needs more paper? More paper. Always, I can do this. So this has become an economical thing for me. Once again, I'm in a Title I school, so money is an issue for us. I just wanted to say, though, if you're in a situation where you might be, it just has to be said, if you're in a situation where nicer sketchbooks can be had, what a beautiful resource that is. And what an excellent investment, I think, because it becomes such an expression of the students and what they are capable of that time. I think it says a lot if you could present your students with a real hefty sketchbook that's really a nice quality and it's got the good paper in it with a good tooth to it and capable of accepting different mediums. You know, that paper's got to be heavy if you're going to watercolor and oil pastel and things on it. So if you're in a situation where you can do fancy sketchbooks, I envy you. I think that's amazing. But I do introduce those sketchbooks to the students. Real artists use real sketchbooks all the time. Or let's take out that real word, right? They use sketchbooks. They might sketch something down on a napkin and then put it in their sketchbook later. Their sketchbooks become scrapbooks. It's an excellent conversation to just any kind of bullet journal or any kind of personal notebook you can have to capture your ideas. A lot of times when I tell people what I do for a living, that I'm an art teacher, they're like going, oh, I don't have a creative bone in my body. And I know that makes all of us just kind of smile that are in the creative business, if you will. Because it kind of gives the idea that if you are a creative, if you are an artist, that these ideas just, I don't know where they come from, except for this is my experience. Creativity really has to be cultivated. And it really has to be recorded. I know I've many times, oh, that's a really great idea. This is a solution to a problem, an artistic problem I've come up with. I could make that happen. And if I don't write it down, if I don't get it captured, it's like even the next day, I'm like going, or even later in the night, well, what was that great idea? I had a great idea this morning and I can't remember. So creativity really has to be nurtured and intentionally recorded. So I like to introduce all of my students to sketchbooks on this level. Now, some of the fun things that I've been able to do with the sketchbooks is, and this ties in with our last and final task here. And let me just move on to this, okay? And this is the same picture. Students need a place to rewrite their own responses to art. So this is where a student who might not have participated in the V.T.S, that might have wanted to participate, but didn't find a voice, is shy, or maybe unsure of what they were going to say. All right. So this gives this full circle. This gives them a chance to write what they would have said. So we've got some prompts here for them. These, of course, I think a worksheet with the exact questions from V.T.S could be very powerful and might be an excellent way to introduce students to V.T.S with the written down questions. But I've just shared here just a random little thing I've gotten off the internet. And in fact, I think you can see the .com below and the images there. If you wanted to get that exact same one, you could. In fact, I'll read it. It says kitchentableclassroom.com. So we'll just give them a shout out there. So it says gallery response, and it says the artwork I have the most questions about is, so this is where I'll oftentimes put 2 images up on the Promethean board. This last time we did this, I did present 2 artworks of art by dead white guys. This is, I don't go really heavy on the art history for a middle school classroom, but art history is just a beautiful thing, and I feel like as an art teacher, I would love to have some of the most amazing lectures I've ever been to on a college campus or during my undergraduate was art history. Absolutely amazing, fascinating. I think every creative probably has an art history experience like mine, I hope. But anyway, so I did present them with 2 images of the Dutch masters, but I wanted them to see, and I just present the very most famous ones. So I presented them the girl with the pearl earring, if you can picture that one, and also the Arlofini wedding by Vermeer. And I just had them choose, right? The first question, the artwork I have the most questions about is, and so they could choose, maybe they like one or the other, and maybe they didn't like either one of them. But the one that I have the most questions about is gives them that space to not like either one of them. But let's see, and then name 2 things that you wonder about this work of art. So again, we're tapping into that curiosity and that wonder. Both of those works of art have mysteries about them that even the art historians and curators can't answer. We just don't know. We don't have the written record for either one of those images. And then this worksheet also gives the student a place. It says the artwork that I love the most is, and I've gotten a lot of pushback on this one. Well, I don't like either one of them. And I have to validate that too. I said, you don't have to like either one of them, but one of them you might like more than the other. And that's the answer that I need right there. I also have a little tie-in with my question of the day as we're coming in the door. As my students are coming in the door, if I have one of them say, I don't know, or nothing, they get to step aside and wait till everyone else has had their turn, because I do expect an answer to the question. And this ties in nicely when we're doing when we're doing a worksheet, because I just cannot accept an I don't know or nothing answer. And so my students already know that about me. I won't let them in the room if they can't answer that. And that's they can use that as a clue. Or they can use that as a cue for me that we need to talk further, and that they might have some drama or something going on with them that I need to address, or maybe even refer them to a school counselor or get them some other kind of emotional help from somebody else in the building that's prepared and ready to help them before coming into a classroom. If they're not ready for that, I have those resources available to me. So anyway, so my students know that they can't write I don't know or nothing. They won't get any credit for that. But this gives them a chance to draw which one they liked better. And I absolutely accept stick figures. Now, if you look at the next image, you can see some little cows. Let's see if I can zoom up on that, right? Little cows, and we've got the artwork had the cows on an iceberg, and the artist was just trying to show a juxtaposition, cows where you wouldn't expect to see them on an iceberg, and had some apocalyptic themes and images going as they wrote about their art. But this particular one, I just wanted to show the students some artwork that might get their curiosity going. So this student said, this artwork makes me feel very, and they can fill in the blank. And as she used the word confused, and she wasn't the only one. And it says, what did the artist do to give you those feelings? Confused, because why are the cows in the cold? And a lot of students gave me those same answers. But I like that idea, this connection, that art is emotional. We are, as human beings, we are emotional creatures first, and we respond to the world emotionally. And then our second reaction would be an intellectual kind of response. Well, why do I feel confused when I'm looking at this? And so it's just kind of a way for them to get to not only what are they feeling, but to analyze that feeling a little bit. And you can see how rich and beautiful this is for any classroom, or I hope that you can. But this is where my presentation ends. So thank you so much for letting me share some of these practices of a middle school teacher in the trenches at a Title I school, where we are really trying to help these students develop their literacy. This is, art is my discipline, and this is how we're trying to be responsive to their culture and to the cultures that are around them.
I want to thank you, Pam, and we'll open it up for some questions and connections and sharing. But what I really liked about that last piece is, I mean, you talked about this, but that connection to in the real world, outside of a classroom, which is real, but in the real world, you know, we do critique art. That is part of that point of looking at art is we're looking for interpretation, we're looking to critique it. And so what you're asking those students to do is to really not only analyze and to be able to comprehend, so to speak, the artwork and the art pieces, but they're also learning how to critique it at a middle school level.
Right.
And engaging in that conversation, that language that comes with that connection to what you would do if you were at a museum.
Right. Yes, and they are, and they're just getting their feet wet. This is, you know, a lot of times this is the first time that, well, I won't say that, because elementary school art very heavy with you know, taking an artwork and breaking down and making a project around that. So I don't want to say it's the first time that they've been exposed to art, but it might be the first time that they've been asked to comment on it or have an emotional response to it. And I really like to be there to validate their opinions, and that there's no wrong answers, you know, so long as it is not offensive. There are no wrong answers in an art room. We can all identify and connect as human beings, as people, even as viewers, as we're watching or we're looking at an artwork. We might all have the same response and kind of cringe and pull back, or we might all be really drawn into it, depending on the answers that the artist wanted to present to us. And I love that, back to that saying of Kennedy Wiley's, that the artist is going to give us questions instead of answers.
I love that. And so I want to open it up. We have a couple other people here live. Any questions, comments, connections that you want to make, either in chat or if you want to unmute?
And I would love for feedback too, if there's anything that you observed or any advice you might have for me going forward to get even more literacy goodness going in my art room. I would love to hear that.
I mean, I think you're doing a lot of it. I think that the language of an artist or an art critic or things like that, you know, you're using that. And so that literacy connection, I think it's just learning through conversations. Like, what is it that you want your students to do, which is what you have, And then how are we naming it, and how are we using the disciplinary literacy connection? But these were lovely examples of ways that you're doing more than just asking the students to create, which is important, but you're also engaging in the discipline beyond that as well.
Right. The projects, that's a whole nother webinar seminar. The projects are a whole nother source of, I don't know, learning. Let's say learning.
Well, I appreciate that you took so much time to be detailed about these 3 types of lessons that, and how you presented them to us as a teacher presenting to middle school. I just love it. I learned so much.
It takes us back. I think, you know, all of our, I hope that we can all remember our own middle school experiences, and you know, 9 times out of 10, they're not awesome. So to
That's
be,
true.
yeah, to be in this environment and to be really aware of, you know, just the impact of every day interacting with teachers and students and with people, how we just need to be kind and inclusive and mindful of each other.
Yeah. Good thoughts.
Well, we have 1 more minute if there's anybody that wants to unmute or share anything else before we end. All right. Stop recording.